The morning began like any other. The man stepped out of his small house just as the sun rose, soft light spreading across the quiet street. The air was cool, and the world felt slow, almost peaceful. He had plans for a normal day, errands to run, work to finish, nothing special. He locked the door behind him and started walking toward the main road, not knowing that this ordinary morning was about to change his life. As he reached the corner near a small open field, he noticed movement near a pile of dry leaves. At first, he thought it was just another stray dog looking for food. Stray dogs were common in the area, and most people had learned to walk past them without stopping. But this one did not behave like the others. It didn't bark or run away. It stood still, watching him closely. The dog was medium-sized, with dusty fur and tired eyes. There was something different about the way it looked at him. Its tail did not wag, and its body was tense, as if it was holding in fear. The man slowed his steps, unsure whether to keep walking or stop. The dog took a few steps forward, then stopped again, staring at him with deep focus. He looked around to see if anyone else noticed. A few people were walking farther down the road, busy with their own lives. No one seemed to care. The man hesitated. He didn't want trouble, and he didn't have food with him. Still, something inside him told him not to ignore the dog. The dog suddenly lowered its head and made a soft sound, almost like a cry. It wasn't loud or aggressive. It sounded weak, filled with urgency. Then it did something unexpected. It gently grabbed the edge of the man's pants with its mouth, not biting, just pulling lightly, as if asking him to follow. The man pulled his leg back in surprise. His heart beat faster. He looked down at the dog and spoke softly, telling it to let go. The dog released him immediately, but didn't move away. Instead, it turned around and walked a few steps toward the field, then looked back at him again. Its eyes seemed to ask a question without words. He shook his head, unsure of what was happening. Maybe the dog was hungry, he thought. Maybe it wanted help. He reached into his pocket, hoping to find something, but there was nothing there. When he looked up again, the dog was still waiting, standing a few steps away, not leaving. The man felt uncomfortable walking away. He had ignored many things in life before, moments where he chose not to get involved. This felt different. There was a strong feeling pulling at him, a quiet voice telling him to pay attention. He took a step toward the dog. The dog's ears lifted slightly, and it turned around, walking slowly toward the field. The man followed, telling himself he would only go a short distance. If nothing happened, he would turn back. The path was uneven, filled with dirt and dry grass. The sounds of the road slowly faded. The dog walked ahead, but never too far, always stopping to make sure the man was still behind. The way it moved felt purposeful, like it knew exactly where it was going. As they walked deeper into the field, the man noticed small signs that made him uneasy. There were footprints in the dirt that didn't look fresh, but weren't too old either. A piece of cloth lay caught on a thorn bush, torn and dusty. The man step slowed. His thoughts began to race. He wondered if this was a mistake. What if he was walking into danger? What if the dog led him somewhere he shouldn't be? He considered turning back, but then he looked at the dog again. Its body showed no fear, only urgency. It kept moving forward, trusting him. The man took a deep breath and continued. The wind moved through the tall grass, making a soft sound that felt heavy in the quiet space. The dog stopped suddenly and looked back again, whining softly. This time, the sound was stronger, filled with emotion. "It's okay," the man said quietly, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to calm, the dog or himself. He moved closer, and the dog resumed walking. Minutes felt longer as they went on. The field slowly turned into a more rough area, with bushes and broken ground. The man noticed the dog limping slightly, its steps uneven. This made his chest tighten. The dog was clearly not okay, yet it kept going. At one point, the man stopped and knelt down, trying to check the dog. The dog stepped back quickly, shaking its head, then turned again toward the path ahead. It didn't want attention. It wanted him to keep moving. That was when the man fully understood. This was not about the dog needing help for itself. The dog was asking for help for someone else. The thought sent a chill through him. He stood up and followed without hesitation now. His focus sharpened, and his steps grew faster. Whatever waited ahead mattered more than his fear. As they moved farther from the road, the air felt heavier. The dog slowed down, its breathing visible now. The man could hear it panting softly. Still, it refused to stop. The man's mind filled with questions. How long had the dog been doing this? How many people had walked past without noticing? Why had it chosen him? He would never know the answers, but he knew one thing for sure. If he had ignored the dog, something terrible might have happened. The dog suddenly stopped near a group of thick bushes. It stood completely still, staring ahead. The man felt his heart drop. He stepped closer, pushing branches aside carefully. The dog did not move. It only let out a low, shaky sound, filled with fear and hope at the same time. The man swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly as he took another step forward. Whatever lay beyond those bushes was the reason the dog begged for help. And in that moment, he knew his life would never be the same. The morning that began like any other had turned into something far bigger. And this was only the beginning. The man stood still for a few seconds, listening to his own breathing. The bushes in front of him were thick and tangled, hiding whatever was beyond them. The dog remained frozen, its body low to ground, eyes fixed ahead. It made another soft sound, almost like a plea. The man gently pushed the branches aside and stepped forward. The ground beyond was uneven and damp. He nearly slipped, catching himself just in time. The smell in the air had changed. It was heavier, mixed with dirt and something sour. His chest tightened. The dog moved closer to his side now, no longer leading but staying near, as if it needed him more than ever. They moved slowly through the narrow space. The dog stopped again and looked up at him, its eyes shining with fear and trust. The man nodded to himself, even though the dog couldn't understand words the way humans did. Still, it felt right. He whispered that everything would be okay, though he wasn't sure he believed it. A few steps later, he noticed something on the ground. At first, it looked like a dark bundle of clothes. He leaned closer, his heart pounding harder with each step. The dog rushed forward, whining loudly now, circling the spot again and again. The man froze. There was a person lying there. The body was still, partly covered with dirt and leaves, hidden from the road by the bushes. The man felt a wave of shock rush through him. His hands began to shake. For a moment, he couldn't move. His mind struggled to accept what his eyes were seeing. The dog moved closer to the person's face, licking gently, then pulling back, making small, broken sounds. It was clear the dog had been there for a long time, refusing to leave. The man dropped to his knees beside them. He leaned down carefully, checking for signs of breathing. After a tense moment, he saw a slight movement in the chest. The person was alive, but barely. Relief and fear hit him at the same time. He didn't know what had happened or how long the person had been lying there. He looked around, trying to understand the situation. There were marks on the ground, signs of a struggle or fall. A bag lay nearby, torn open, its contents scattered. The dog watched him closely, as if waiting for approval. When the man gently placed his hand on the person's shoulder, the dog relaxed slightly, but it did not move away. The man pulled out his phone with shaking fingers. His signal was weak, but he tried anyway. After a few attempts, the call went through. He spoke quickly, explaining where he was and what he had found. His voice cracked as he spoke, but he forced himself to stay calm. As he waited for help, he did everything he could think of. He removed his jacket and placed it gently over the person to keep them warm. He spoke softly, telling them they were not alone, even though there was no response. The dog lay down beside the person's head, pressing its body close, offering warmth and comfort. The man noticed fresh scratches and small wounds on the dog's legs. It must have pushed through rough ground again and again, searching for help. Time felt slow. Every sound made the man tense. He kept looking back toward the direction they came from, hoping to see someone, anyone. The dog never took its eyes off the person. The man wondered how long this had been going on. Had the dog tried to stop others? Had people ignored it? The thought made his chest ache. The dog had no voice, yet had never given up. At one point, the person on the ground made a weak sound. The man leaned in closer, speaking gently, encouraging them to hold on. The dog reacted instantly, lifting its head, tail moving slightly for the first time. Minutes later, distant voices could be heard. The man stood and waved his arms, calling out, "Soon!" Help arrived, moving carefully through the bushes. They took control of the situation quickly, checking the person and preparing to move them. One of them noticed the dog and asked whose it was. The man shook his head and explained what had happened. The people helping looked at the dog with surprise and respect. As they worked, the dog tried to follow every movement, clearly worried. The man gently held the dog back, speaking calmly, promising it that the person would be taken care of. When they finally lifted the person, the dog whined loudly, trying to stay close. The man felt tears fill his eyes. He had never seen such loyalty. They carried the person away, and the man followed with the dog at his side. The dog leaned against his leg, exhausted but still alert. As they reached a safer area, the dog finally sat down, breathing heavily. The man knelt beside it, placing a hand on its head. The dog did not pull away this time. "You did good," the man whispered. The dog closed its eyes for a moment, as if those words were all it needed. But the story was far from over. What happened next will reveal just how deep the dog's courage truly was, and how one small choice could change many lives forever. The walk back felt longer than before. The man stayed close to the dog as they followed the people carrying the injured person. Every step felt heavy. The dog moved slowly now, its earlier strength clearly fading, but it never stopped. It kept its eyes fixed ahead, as if afraid that if it looked away, everything might disappear. When they reached the road, the sound of traffic returned, loud and sudden. A few people gathered nearby, watching with worried faces. Some asked questions, others stood in silence. The man barely noticed them. His focus was on the dog, who seemed confused by the noise but refused to move far from the person being helped. Soon, a vehicle arrived to take the injured person away. As they carefully placed him inside, the dog tried to jump forward. It let out a sharp cry, louder than before. The sound cut through everyone standing there. It wasn't fear. It was pain mixed with worry. The man stepped in gently, holding the dog back. He spoke softly, telling it the person was going to be safe. The dog struggled for a moment, then stopped, standing still as the door closed. It watched until the vehicle drove away and disappeared down the road. Only then did the dog's body change. Its legs shook, and it slowly lowered itself to the ground. The strength that carried it so far was gone. The man knelt beside it right away. Up close, the dog looked worse than he had first thought. There were small cuts along its sides, dry blood on its paws, and its breathing was uneven. The man felt a deep ache in his chest. This dog had pushed itself past its limits without a second thought. People nearby began to speak. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered about how the dog must have stayed with the injured person all night. A few admitted they had seen the dog earlier, pulling at people, but they hadn't stopped. Those words stayed with the man. He looked down at the dog and felt a mix of sadness and anger. How many chances had there been for help to come sooner? The man decided then that he wouldn't walk away. He gently picked the dog up. The dog was lighter than he expected, its body thin and weak. At first, the dog tensed, unsure, but then it relaxed, resting its head against the man's chest. He carried the dog to a quieter spot away from the crowd. He offered it water from a bottle he found nearby. The dog drank slowly, then stopped, too tired to continue. The man stayed there, sitting on the ground, holding the dog. Time passed without him noticing. His plans for the day no longer mattered. Everything felt small compared to what had just happened. A while later, someone returned with news. The injured person had reached help in time. They were alive, though still in serious condition. The words brought a wave of relief. The man closed his eyes for a moment and let out a long breath. The dog lifted its head when it sensed a change in his breathing. The man smiled faintly and gently stroked its fur. He whispered the news, even though he wasn't sure the dog could understand. Still, the dog's tail moved just once, slow and weak. As the crowd began to thin, the man realized something else. The dog had nowhere to go. No one came forward claiming it. It lay quietly beside him, trusting, exhausted. He thought about leaving, about the responsibilities waiting for him. But every time he looked at the dog, he knew he couldn't. The dog had saved a life. The least he could do was not abandon it. He stood carefully, holding the dog again, and began walking toward his home. Each step felt right, as if this path had been chosen for him. When they reached his house, he placed the dog on a soft blanket near the door. The dog looked around slowly, then rested its head on the ground. Its eyes stayed open, watching him, still alert despite the pain. The man cleaned the dog's wounds as gently as he could. The dog flinched but did not pull away. Trust had been built without words. As night came, the man sat beside the dog, listening to its breathing. He wondered what the dog had been through before that morning. Hunger, fear, loneliness, yet it still chose to protect someone else. Outside, the world continued as normal. Inside, something had changed forever. The man didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if the injured person would fully recover. He didn't know how long the dog would need care. But one thing was clear. This was not just a story of rescue. It was a story of loyalty, pain, and silent courage. And the dog's journey was not over yet. What came next would test its strength in ways no one expected.